Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, entrepreneur and comedian Ian Stanley talks about getting mugged at 15.
As I was walking along the sidewalk on one side of the road, two of them crossed and then the other three stood at a distance. He goes, "Hey, brothers, you got any eats?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have any eats." He's like, "Brothers, you got any eats, bruv?" And I said, "No, I don't have any food." And he's like, "Oh, not food, bruv. Has he got any money?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Come on, bro, you ain't got any money." And I said, "Yeah, I've got something." So I literally had, all that I had in my wallet was £5 because I'd had this weird feeling that something was going to happen. So I'd put my money into my socks. And so I gave them the £5 and they go, "Give us your mobile." And I was like, "No." They said, "Give us your mobile." And it was at this point that they had taken a knife out.
Today on the show, comedian Ian Stanley talks about getting mugged at 15. Stay close.
Hey, it's Ian Stanley, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of going on 14 years, or you're a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week, which was a show from a couple of years ago with comedian Greg Baldwin. He talks about how meth saved his life, which is obviously incredible. So go back, you guys, listen to Greg Baldwin from last week, but not today. Stick with me now, because today I'm here with a very interesting person. And he's a comedian, yes, but he's also an entrepreneur. That's right. He's smart, I think is what I'm trying to say. The other thing that makes him unique to this show is he's in Idaho. I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody in Idaho, but this is very exciting. And today, Ian Stanley brings us the topic mugged at 15. So that is terrifying. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. But first off, I wanted to say, Ian, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
And I like how I read in one of your bios that you're half English, half American, and everybody thinks you're Australian.
Yes, that is an absolute fact. Every day of my life, I'm mistaken for an Australian person. So I always have to start every interview, every speech, every time I'm on stage. I have to address it because otherwise people sit there wondering where I'm from and thinking I'm Australian for the whole time.
That's hilarious. That's very funny. And so where did you grow up?
So I grew up in England and in California, actually. So my dad's from Liverpool. My mum's from Ventura. So I grew up in, Thousand Oaks, Westlake Village area.
Sure.
And then I went to a tennis academy and lived in England by myself for part of high school, is where I got mugged, actually. So I grew up in...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to hear this. No, wait, you went over for a tennis academy?
Yeah, so I'd go, as a kid, lived in both, went to England and stuff for summers, and then I wanted to live there full time, so I played tennis since I was 3 years old. My mum and dad are still number one in the world for their age right now, and they're 70 and 73. My mum and I hate tennis. I've hated it my whole life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my mum and I won the national mother-son 2 years ago. So we were number one in the nation, but I despise it. So
wait a minute. This reminds me of Andre Agassi. He always said that he despised it, but that's because he was totally abused as a kid and forced to play.
Mine was less intense. It was less intense, but it was, I was supposed to win Wimbledon from age 3. So there was just a lot of pressure. And Agassi's book is amazing. The ghostwriter for that,
Open,
the best writers in the world. And when people say, "Oh, you hate tennis, that's not possible, you're so good at it," I'm like, no, it's very possible. I genuinely hate it, but I played it my whole life.
Very interesting. Wow. Agassi's book is called Open, and I think it's orange. Wasn't it orange?
I read it on Kindle, but it's written in the present tense, and the writer, apparently Andre is a good writer as well, but the ghostwriter wrote it all in the present tense, and it's incredibly well written on top of being a great story. I've read it a couple of times.
Me too.
Fantastic.
I've read it a couple times. That's how you know it's a good book. When you go back and read a book, you know it's a good book, man. That's a very good sign. But real quick, wasn't the cover? You don't remember the cover of the book because you never saw the cover of the book.
Yeah, I had it on my Kindle. I can't remember, but orange sounds right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's one of my favorite books. And another one of my very favorite books, just along those lines, is a book called Schultz. And it's all about the animator Charles Schultz. And that's a very good book. I mean, when you're talking about one person.
Yeah, I've never read that, but I have to check it out.
You'd love it. Yeah, you'd love that. Anyway, I adore tennis. I'm a huge tennis fan. I've been playing just like 25 years since I've been in LA, really. But yeah, my father adored it. But I am competitive, but not nearly to the point of being angry at the sport. You know what I mean? Like I am not. I love the sport. I went to the U.S. Open for the first time last year in New York. That was thrilling. Expensive, very expensive.
Yeah, people love tennis, but most people who played it very seriously as a kid don't like it that much. And like, I mean, I played with like, Sam Querrey and Steve Johnson and Marcus Giron and all the American guys who are playing now. And I mean, most people it's so much pressure. It's such I was throwing rackets off the court. I was always super chill, not an angry person. I am competitive to a degree that it's a problem. Like I still, in anything, if I'm playing beer pong, it doesn't matter if it's that or a video game or something, I'm competitive in an insane way. But I used to throw rackets over fences. I would punch myself in the head. I would punch strings. I still have scars on my fingers from, losing my temper. I was notorious for my temper. It was
do you have brothers and sisters?
Just me.
I see. So there's pressure in a different way as well, being an only child and stuff. No, I was just thinking if your other siblings picked it up that way, because like if it's not fun, that's insane. I mean, so you don't play anymore, really?
No, I try not to. Like I said, my dad and I, we were number 2 in the nation for father-son. At one point, my mum and I won the national. Playing with her is one of the worst. I love my mother. Even if she listened to this, she would agree. It's very hard to play with her. It's like being locked in a prison with the one person who can push all of your buttons because
she's so controlling.
She's just super intense and just very negative on a court. And so it's very tough for us to play together. It's like it's just an exercise purely in like spiritual growth at this point. I play with her. My only goal is to not get angry. And I did that in the last tournament. We ended up winning it. So it was it's just basically like it's meditation.
Is she good? When you do a good shot? Like if you do something right, is she happy about that?
Kind of. She's definitely more on the amplify the negativity over the positivity type of a person.
That's tough.
Yeah, by double fault, she's shrugging her shoulders and getting. No, it's been a wonderful growing experience. Her and I are closer than ever at this point. But it doesn't make it easy to. It's the only place where I'm just a crazy person is on a tennis court.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. And then you have this whole business on the side. I mean, I know you're a comedian, and I feel like you're a comedian in the sense of you're in front of people often. So you picked up that skill. Does that sound right, or is that wrong?
No, I mean, I did my first set when I was 24. I never thought I was going to do stand-up. I thought I was going to go into special forces in the Army, or just have my own business, and that'll come up in the story. But I was writing emails. So I write sales copy. And then I did this thing where I decided to write a joke every day. And there was a story about Seinfeld and how he used to write. He got a wall calendar and he would put an X on the calendar for every day that he wrote a joke. And his whole thing was don't break the chain. And so I did that when I was 24. I wrote a joke every day for 90 days. I wasn't a comedian, didn't really even think I was going to do stand-up. But then I went skydiving with some Navy SEALs and I felt nothing. I literally had like zero adrenaline. And so I thought, okay, something's broken. I've got to figure this out. So I signed up for a set. I called this one guy I knew who did stand-up. I just met him and I go, oh, I'm just going to go do like 20 minutes at the Red Room because I didn't understand how stand-up worked. And I thought you could just go and do that. And he's like, no, you'll go to an open mic. You'll get 3 minutes or you'll get 5 minutes if you bring friends. So I signed up and I curled up on the floor and was like, oh my God, I'm scared. And then I did my first set and it actually went really, really well, which was unexpected and sort of unusual. And I was just addicted from then. And then I did like 7 sets that year in San Diego. And then I moved to Austin and basically stopped for like 4 or 5 years while I was building my businesses and stuff. And just sort of.
It's interesting because you might think that you really picked it up in Austin because there's kind of a scene.
There is now. There wasn't really when I moved there. It was a pretty weird scene. It was kind of like very cliquey and there wasn't a lot. And then I moved to LA 2018 to take, or 2019 to take stand-up serious. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to go do with my life. And then COVID happened 8 months into being there. And then
and there goes all the clubs.
For a little bit, yeah. And so that's when I moved to Idaho, and just fell in love with it here. And so I've been here for 3.5 years, and huge fan. But it's yeah.
Well, it's very interesting. Just quickly, tell me the top 3 things about Idaho.
Nature. The nature is amazing. Like the mountains are all around the center of downtown. And it's just like there's every season. I never understood seasons. I was always like, yeah, there's 2 good seasons. There's California, there's summer and pretty much still summer. And then I moved here. People are like, I like when there's leaves falling. And I'm like, yeah, I like when it's nice out. And then I moved here and I'm like, oh, I love it. I love the seasons because it makes you appreciate every season because you know it's ending soon. So you try to get the most out of it. And then I'd say it's like the cleanest city ever. There's literally no trash. There's like 2 homeless people. One of them doesn't have any limbs and he's super chill. So nobody screams at you when you're going to a coffee shop. You don't get yelled at by people and there's no human shit. There's no human shit on the ground. Which I was in Venice right by the beach and we had homeless people steal our mail and, shit in front of our house. And so I was like, yeah, I'm good on that. And then I'd say the third thing, the people are just incredibly nice. They're almost too nice where it's like awkward. Like they want to talk to you all the time. And you're like, okay, calm down. Like I'm just trying to order a coffee. They're so super nice people.
That's very funny. So you bring forth the topic today, mugged at 15, which is freaking terrifying. I have a kid and they're 17. And I've always told my kid, man, you just make the most sound you possibly can. Just kick and scream as loud as you can and try to never go to the second location.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds so horrible, but it's true.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I got super deep into violence training and martial arts and stuff after the mugging because of it.
I bet you did. I bet. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. But before we do, you have this presence, this whole presence of being this huge copywriter guy, which I never even thought. I mean, I know there's copywriters because I've done so many commercials and stuff. So I understand ad copy and I understand copywriters. They're the people that write the words to get somebody to buy a product, I guess is the way you say it, right?
That's the simplest explanation. Yeah.
Yeah. But you've been doing this for so long and you've been able to sell a bunch of products. What are the products you sell?
At this point, so my main business is called Almost Passive Income. So I basically teach people how to make money online at this point. So I teach people how to do what I did and what I do. So either whether it's building a business or learning how to write copy for other people. So I've had like 800 students who've gone through the main program who have learned how to make 5 to 10 to 30, 40 grand a month just writing emails for other companies. So I teach that and then I consult for bigger companies on, their funnels and traffic and all sorts of stuff like that. So I've got like 50 something courses on, how to make money in different ways.
That's so interesting.
But I've sold all sorts of shit. I had a water filter company. So I used to do these videos where I would drink out of toilets and drink out of like puddles on the ground with these water filters. And so I sold my water filter company. I've sold survival products and all sorts of different stuff, writing for other people and for my own things. I've sold all sorts of different things, whether it's physical products or, masterminds or courses or whatever it is.
Do you like selling or is it just that you're good at it so you keep doing it?
I love selling good products. I've done a lot of, I've had a lot of offers to write stuff and do things for products that I don't believe in, and I just don't do it. There's a lot of really shitty there are so many scumbags in my industry. Like, it's full of the shittiest people in the world, like that just sell garbage to, you know, people that have no idea what they're signing up for, and they screw people over. So I used to do these parody videos as actually part of how I built my career. I did these videos. I had a character called Ly Topez, which there's a guy, Ty Lopez. I had Very Grinder Chuck for Gary Vee. There's a guy, Grant Cardone. So I had a character called Kent Cardone. And I would do these parodies of these people, and they went viral, at least within our space. And so I sort of made fun of a lot of the stuff going on, but there's lots of shit people and bad products. But I love selling stuff that's good. I mean, it changes people's lives. I don't have any like shame around it. A lot of people have issues with selling because they think it's bad, and it's like, well, it's only bad if you're selling something that doesn't help people. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, you are very much an artist. I mean, in terms of coming up with those characters and doing those videos, that's very smart. That was a clever idea.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I just wrote a book that it isn't out yet, but it's called How to Not Be a Boring Piece of Shit. And one of the big things is just doing the opposite of other people. So people think it's real clever, but I'm like, well, I really just switched the letters around, and then, you know, I could do the you know, the character themselves, but I was just having fun. I didn't expect them to go viral or anything. I just made them for my friends, and then it turned out that other people really liked them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now, of course, you've taken up stand-up or brought it back in your life, and you're filming your very first special, and it's called Controversial, or is it controversial?
It's controversial.
Controversial.
I'm English, so I'm allowed to say that word.
Right.
It's I actually already filmed it. I filmed it in November, so it's going to be coming out in March. So in about a month. Yeah.
Why did you name it that? What is the what comes back to that word?
Yeah, so I have about I think probably 7 or 8 minutes on the word cunt and why it's my favorite word. And just, you know, the consonants and the sounds and the different uses and the versatility. And then I like to talk about, you know, what would be perceived as controversial topics. So it's just fine to be funny. And it's, I think, especially after like the whole COVID, you know, cancellation phase of everything, I feel like people have, it sounds crazy to say now, but there was a part of me that thought stand-up might not come back, like with the in-person stuff, but also just that was when it was rampant where you couldn't say a single word. And so I like to find clever ways to talk about things that you're not supposed to talk about. That's what I think's funny. So it just felt like controversial was the right.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate. And I've never heard anybody use that word play in that word.
No, and there is an asterisk there. So technically it could be controversial, you know, for ads and things or whatever. But it is a U.
You guys can find out a lot more about Ian Stanley over at his website, ianstanleycomedy.com. All right, you guys, I'm looking forward to this story. Wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Ian Stanley.
Okay. So basically, when I was 15, I was living in England in a shithole called Sutton, going to a tennis academy there. And so every night, at the end of the day, you know, we'd play for hours a day, and then we would take the train back, or I would take the train back to, it's just a couple of stops back to where I was staying with this horrible family. They were terrible. It was like a Harry Potter situation. They were just miserable people. They would house people who would come to the academy. They were just terrible. I stayed with them for like 3 months, and just as a display of the guy who was the dad who I'd stayed with for 3 months was a taxi driver. He drove me to the airport when I was flying back to America, and he charged me for the trip.
Oh, God.
I can't imagine being an adult and doing that. It was really bizarre. And they were just a weird family and shit. But so I was walking home. It was nighttime. It was dark out. It was cold, as it always is in London. It was, you know, misty and damp and shit. And I had a weird feeling. And like until years after, I didn't really realize what was going on. But I had this feeling that something bad was going to happen as I was walking to the academy. This feeling that I was going to get mugged. And now people go, oh, well, that's, you know, you're just saying that because it happened and, you know, it's hindsight. No, I really had a bad feeling and I didn't trust it.
Wow.
Because I was like, no, that's stupid. I'm sure it'll be fine. But I had this feeling going down into the train station and that somebody was going to try to do something. I was like, okay, I could pull my tennis racket out of my bag. I could, fight them. I could whatever. And so I get to the train station. I'm feeling weird. And I walk down the stairs. It's an outdoor station. I walk down the stairs into the station and there's 5 guys in there, like kicking bottles around, just making sounds. And they're kind of like in England, what type of people they are. It's just these sort of high key kids who are, causing problems and stuff. They're probably 18, 20 years old. And I had this 40-pound tennis bag on my back with all my gear and everything in it. And so I'm like, I just had a bad feeling the second I got down there. So I stood there for about, 20, 30 seconds and then just decided to turn around and go back up the stairs and get out of the station. And so as I was walking up the stairs, I noticed that they started walking towards me and behind me. And so I got up to the top of this staircase and saw that they'd come behind me, and I crossed the street to, sort of just get away from them. And then they came, basically 2 of them. And this is actually now I know sort of traditional gang tactics of how they stop you. But as I was walking along the sidewalk on one side of the road, 2 of them crossed, and then the other 3 stood at a distance across the road, sort of watching to make sure. And so I had my tennis bag on my back. I couldn't run away. It was a 40-pound, bag. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get away. And so they said, he goes, hey, brothers, you got any eats? And I'm like, no, I don't have any eats. He's like, brothers, you got any eats, bruv? And I said, no, I don't have any food. And he's like, oh, not food, bruv. Has he got any money? And I said, no. And for some reason, I just stood up to them both the times. I go, has he got any money, bruv? I go, no. He goes, come on, bruv, you ain't got any money. And I said, yeah, I've got some. And so I literally had, all that I had in my wallet was £5 because I'd had this weird feeling that something was going to happen. So I'd put my money into my socks going before I'd gone up there. So I'd stuck the money into my socks. And so I gave them the £5. And they go, give us your mobile. And I was like, no. They said, give us your mobile. And it was at this point that they had taken a knife out. And this was the part that really I found out upset me later was, all he did was he took the knife and he knocked it on the sign next to him to say, look, we'll stab you if you don't give us this. But what really bothered me most is that they didn't even respect me enough to properly hold the knife at me and really like it. I was just, what people don't realize is when you're getting mugged, you're just meat. You're just skin and, just bones wrapped in meat and skin, and they don't give a fuck about you. Like you're a slave in those moments and you're completely at their mercy. And doing a lot of work around looking back at it, it really upset me that they didn't even bother to hold the knife to my neck or, really properly mug me. And so they said, give us your mobile. And after I'd seen the knife, I go, okay, so I give them my phone. And then maybe one of the craziest things that's ever happened is as they were walking away, they had turned and walked away. And I said, hey, can I get a number out of that really quickly? And and they turned and they looked at me like I was a fucking alien. They were like, what the fuck? We've just mugged you. And they literally just went, no. And I was like, okay. Because I hadn't fully understood what had happened either. It was so quick, and I was 15 years old, and there's people who get mugged and it doesn't change their life that much when they're older and stuff, but you're forming your identity and who you are at that age. And so they walked away, and I was trying to get the number of this guy named Paz, who I was supposed to play tennis with the next day, and I'd just gotten his number. And so I was just like, I want to make sure he knows, that I'm going to show up or whatever. And it didn't really hit me yet. And so I walked into the corner store, which was right next to it. Like they mugged me and, it's on the sidewalk. It wasn't like some alleyway or something. Yeah. I walk in there and I go, hey, I've just been mugged. These guys just held me a knife point and took my stuff. And then I just started crying, just out of nowhere, just started bawling. And they called the police, and the police actually came, and we drove around for like 30 minutes looking for these guys, trying to find them. We didn't find them. And it was that feeling of being in the store, feeling completely powerless. Like I just knew that they had taken my freedom in those moments, and I never wanted to feel that again. And I never wanted other people to feel that again. So they ended up actually catching the guys about a week later. And I'd actually flown back to America after the mugging. My parents were like, okay, let's have you come home. And they found the guys, and we actually wanted to go to court because they were going to fly us out to England for free and pay for everything.
Testify.
But the guys admitted to being guilty or whatever, and I think I got like £200, 200 quid or whatever. But they had found out that the same guys from that same group, they had actually had like a German tourist they had mugged the week before and stabbed him under his rib cage and killed him. So I'd look back and you relive it all, and you go, I could have fought them, I could have taken out my tennis rackets, I could have done this and I could have done that, and I definitely did the right thing. But it shaped everything after that, because I was a victim in that moment, and it was a choice of, do I want to be a victim, or do I want to be the type of person that won't be a victim again? And so I chose the latter, and I chose to then get super into martial arts. I started doing Kung Fu, which then I thought was kind of bullshit. So I found these basically just really brutal, like this prison guard guy who taught self-defense stuff, and I read his book, and then I trained with him and learned how to, survive and fight and do those things. And so I just became obsessed. And then I thought I was going to join the military because I wanted to learn how, I wanted to be the most dangerous person in the world so that nobody could ever fuck with me, because I'd had that experience. So yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, you did do the right thing. I mean, no matter how much self-defense you learned, if there are 4 or 5 of them, what are you saying? You would have done, if you have the skills you have now, you're telling me you would have done something different at that time?
No. Right now, I'd actually give them more. I would give them all of it.
Yeah.
Is what I would do. Because they're in a worse situation. At this point in my life, I would just give them everything I had and say, I hope that things get better for you.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, because now you're older and mature.
Yeah. But even then, no, I wouldn't have changed it, because it could have gone bad. And so running is the number one thing anybody should do in general. I got jumped in Santa Cruz a few years later, and I had trained this thing called a flinch response, where basically if somebody attacks you, you have this trained response before your conscious mind becomes active. And this guy threw a punch, and I basically just did this thing called the spear, which I just dove into him, and then I knocked him, into the street, and then I just ran from these 2 guys, and that was the right move. There's no, especially in America, the laws are very bad, especially in California. For self-defense, the laws are very much not in your favor. So even if you get off in a court of criminal law, you can get done in civil cases and stuff. And so you can literally get attacked and then end up going to jail for hurting the other person. So that's your best case scenario, is what, you kill a guy, you beat the shit out of them.
I know
that's not a good,
right. That's a horrible thing. Because then how would you feel? Like my dad.
Oh, I'd feel fine. If I killed a piece of shit, that wouldn't bother me personally. I know that sounds crazy.
No, it just depends on the circumstance. Like, for instance, I grew up in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, very rural. And my dad was always a big fan of having a gun in the house. And he always had a gun in the house. And he'd say, because honey, anybody, and this is after the kids were gone. Like, he and his wife were living together, and he'd say, honey, anybody comes to my door and takes anything I have, I'll blow their fucking heads off. I'll blow their fucking heads off. I'm like, Dad, you don't have anything. Are you telling me if somebody takes your VCR, you're going to blow their head off? Like, you think you could live with that? Like, if it was, especially like in your case, like kids that are just being idiots. And if you think if you killed them, that would somehow make you feel good about yourself. Like, I don't think, it depends on the crime. It depends on everything.
Yeah, I'd be fine. I personally would be fine with killing anybody who broke into my house or anything. I mean, my thing is, you're preventing them from maybe doing it in the future.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'd prefer that they died, but I know it's a fine line. And I think, though, okay, so you said, you're a victim, and you were, but I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, this 15-year-old kid did all the right things. First of all, he put money in his sock, which is brilliant. Most people don't even do that. Second of all, you gave him the £5. You didn't get out your tennis racket. You didn't become threatening. And you even were calm enough to then say, hey, can I get a number out of there? Which I still don't understand what I was thinking. Like, I remember I told the woman the woman whose house I was staying in, and she goes, well, that's cheeky, isn't it? Just to ask them, because I was like, I don't know. I told the guy whose number I had gotten the story, and he goes, well, you were trying to get my number. And I go, yeah. He's like, mate, you just got robbed. Like, what? And I was like, yeah, I wanted to make sure you knew I was,
Oh, you're good for it.
And also, what was I going to do? Pull out a piece of paper and be like, hey, thanks for the mugging. Could I just write that down really quickly? Like, I didn't have, where was I going to write the number down?
That is what makes me, again, I think that you were very strong in that moment. And even just to converse like a normal person adds to the fact that you got to see them, you heard their voice, maybe you got another piece of identification about them. I mean, in other words, I feel like you handled it really well. Then when you walk into the shop, of course, you feel safety around you and you can now let down your guard. I mean, I think that everything happened the way it was supposed to.
Oh, 100. I regret nothing. I literally am so grateful for that experience. If you take it's 2 minutes of my life, which is such a small portion of my time that I've been alive. But if you took that away, I'm not me.
Yeah.
I'm not the person I am. I wouldn't have become, a guy I've done a lot of very hard shit at this point physically. And it's because I didn't want to be a pussy. I didn't want to be a guy who was unable to defend himself and unable to deal with hard stuff. And so there's no way I'd be the person I am had that not happened. I would like to meet them again and thank them. If they're alive, like genuinely, it's probably the best thing, just about the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow. That's intense.
And I think that's so many people they have a bad experience and they let it define them negatively. And for me, I mean, literally it shifted every moment afterward because I made a choice. I'm not going to be the victim of that. I think that's part of one of the problems with society right now is everybody's given a fucking disorder and then they identify with whatever their thing is. And everybody wants to be a victim because it gives them attention, but it makes you miserable,
Now, wait a second. I have got to hear what the phone call was like to your mom, because I can't even imagine having a kid out of country and then hear that this happened. So did you call them or did the police call?
I don't even know. I'm thinking it was nighttime in England. So it would have been, noon or probably would have been, noon or 1 o'clock in California. I don't even know if I must have called them that night. I called my dad. And then he must have. We try not to make a big deal out of things to my mom because she tends to overreact. So I think it was like, oh, it's not that big. It's like, you're coming home. And I was like, no, it's okay. Like, I want to stay. And, and then it was like, no, you're coming home. I don't really remember that much. I think the main thing was my dad was like, well, hopefully they catch him. And once they'd caught them, hopefully they don't plead guilty so we can get a free flight to England. That's all he cared about was it's like, let's go get a free trip. So when they pled guilty, it was actually a bummer because we didn't have to go there to find them or anything.
Also, though, in England, because I've spent some time there, I dated a guy there for a while. And, it's very much it seems to be very much like about thug life and these ruffians in the street beating each other up. I guess a knife, but there's never guns. I mean, it's not like you were.
No, there's no guns, but stabbings are incredibly common. It's actually, it depends on where you're at in England. Like I was in a rough area. I was not in a nice place. It was called Sutton, but we called it Slutton. Just like the people were, everybody talked like this, bruv, in it. And they said in it after every sentence. I used to talk like this for a bit, like proper. Yeah. Like it was, and then I got back to America. People were like, yeah, we don't know what you're saying. You've got to calm that shit down.
Their accent has a question at the end of every sentence. Isn't that right then? Right. Who's for tea? Right. Right.
In it. You could make a statement, but still be asking a question somehow,
Yeah. It never. Yeah,
I'm good though, in it. And then, it was a weird place. And there is a lot of, it was relatively common. Like it wasn't like it's in America, I feel like getting mugged is less common in certain ways. There's obviously more shootings and different things, but stabbings are pretty common there. Like English people are quite stabby as a group. They tend to do that.
Yeah. When I think of England, the time I've spent there and what I see on TV, it just seems so goddamn depressing, man. I mean, I know there's 5 sunny days a year. I know we all ran out to the park. I know. But the other the other time, it's just really depressing. Am I right?
The weather is, no, you're right. If England has amazing people and it's a very fun place and there's lots of great things, but the weather is genuinely, it is depressing. Like it's 100% why, like, that's why my dad won't move back ever. Cause it's just, the weather's too shit. You don't want to be there all the time. If there is a sunny day, everyone's in the perk just as though they've never seen sun in their lives. So it's true. The people are awesome. I mean, imagine it's an island that was so miserable to be on because of the weather that they went and took over the entire world. Right. The English were like, let's build a good navy so that we can literally be anywhere else. Let's go somewhere where it's warm. I don't care who we have to kill. I just want to see the sun.
I read recently they took over 89 countries. Does that sound right?
That sounds right. Yeah. Which for a tiny country with, but it just goes to show they were like, let's just get off this island because it's fucking cold and wet. Yeah. And let's go take over some other countries. And
nobody can cook here. Yeah.
That's true. That's fair.
And so now, do you have to travel a lot for the copyright thing you do, or do you pretty much do that from your home?
Oh, I work from my laptop for my business, and then I travel for stand up and for I speak at a lot of events as well, like at entrepreneur events, and I'll do stand up at those events as well. So I travel quite a bit still, and I like to travel. That was a big part of why I wanted to make money from my laptop was just to be able to live anywhere and go around. So I love being in Idaho now because I travel a lot and it feels like home. So when I'm in, if I go to Austin, which I lived there for 4 years and I love it, but it's like you go to get a coffee and you're getting screamed at by a homeless person at full volume, right? But I'm like, just wait till after I've had my coffee, then you can tell me to go fuck myself, or just these like the cities that are more densely packed and stuff. It's great to be there, and I love being there for a few days. But after a few days, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be back where there's no traffic and there's mountains everywhere.
And how far do you live from Boise? Is that the airport you go in?
Yeah. So I'm about 7 minutes from downtown, and then I have a house that's about 45 minutes outside and on a mountain, sort of outside of it as well. So I'm pretty close to the middle of stuff here, but there really isn't. There's not a lot of stand up, but there's one comedy club that I'm probably going to actually invest in. And so I can go and do sets and get like either go headline pretty much whenever I want or go do 20 minutes and, for comics that are coming into town. So otherwise it's like open mics with like 7 people and it's pretty awful.
Well, the thing is though, no matter who's there at the open mic, you're just working your stuff out anyway. But I know what you're saying. If there's not real shows around, that's tough.
Yeah, well, it's not. There isn't now, so I won't. I'm not. It's not that I'm above it egotistically, but it's not worth going and doing an open mic. So I'll just do my own shows and or go and there's legit comics coming through at this club, so I'll go and go do 20 minutes before they go on and stuff. So it's a good place to. It's kind of like the biggest fish in a little pond type of thing, or do I want to go and be just another guy in LA or Austin?
Well, it all depends. Everybody's so independent. There's plenty of comedians that aren't at the level of the top comedians that are perfectly happy. You know what I mean? Like, because a lot of comedians do other things as well, whether that be voiceovers or catering.
Yeah, there are comedians who do catering. That's true.
No, I'm just saying, as long as everybody's happy where they live, that's all that matters. I frankly don't want to leave this 2-hour area that I'm in, and I'm in the center of Los Angeles. And if I don't have to leave within this 100 miles, I'll never leave this 100 miles.
Yeah, I get it. I don't feel that way about LA anymore, but at one point I did.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I totally get it. Yeah, there's pros and cons, of course. Yes, of course. And it's been raining a bunch here this week, which is very exciting. Everybody loves the weather. My kid was like, will there be school tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I think there's going to be school.
Yeah, it's rain.
It's just rain. It's just rain. Anyway, you're very interesting. I'm really happy to talk with you. And the whole copyright thing is fascinating. And it also sort of, I can see how it leads into comedy because, stand-up comedy is all about brevity and saying everything in the smallest amount of words. And I suspect that's copyright, really.
Yeah, copywriting and even just writing in general and stand-up are very, they're all related. And it's like the biggest thing when I coach other writers is just say less. Use less words to say the same thing. And that's basically stand-up is going up, taking a 10-minute story, telling it in 10 minutes, then making it 7 minutes, then making it 6 minutes and cutting all the fat. So it really is just efficiency. And I think, I've also spent, running my own events like 9 hours in a day on stage speaking in a single day. And so it forces you to get comfortable up there. And but definitely writing has played, also just being a writer who's made a living as a writer, you have the discipline of writing jokes as well. And writing, I mean, I don't really write jokes. It's more stories and concepts and ideas and stuff, but it's helped a ton. I mean,
yeah, because then you end up crafting punchlines, and then that kind of pulls you through what you have to say, and everybody's more interested if you're actually being funny. You know what I mean? Like the audience is much more on your side if you're making them laugh.
Yeah, well, it makes speaking very. People are like, "Oh, you nervous when you speak?" And not even a little bit, because compared to stand up, it's a joke. It's so easy because when you make people laugh on the stage, when you're speaking about making money or something, they're just like, oh my God, that's so funny. I didn't expect to laugh. Whereas in stand-up, there's only one metric for whether or not you're doing well. And it's, are the people in the crowd laughing? And if they're not, you're failing. And so
they say that you need to say something funny or something of interest. So there really is that of interest thing. But if at the end of the interesting part, it's not funny.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
100%. There are comics who get obsessed with like laughs per minute, where they're like always needing to make little pieces. And it's like, well, there are some stories that are worth not having people laugh for a minute or two because the payoff is super high, and it's to set it up and to tell the story and to get people in. But then there are comics who they tell that story and then there's nothing funny at the end. And then it's like, well, yeah, that's a good story, but it's not comedy.
Yeah. I did a good 10-minute set a couple weeks ago, and I counted 39 punches in 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So I felt really good about it. Yeah. Because you do, I'm not saying everyone lands huge, but there are, there were almost 40 punchlines in 10 minutes. Yeah.
Nice. Do you write yours? Do you write them out? Yeah.
Of course, you got to write them. And then I do like 10 open mics a week just because I love doing it. It's like my favorite place to be is in a comedy, in a comedy room with other comics. There's no audience, but I just really like that atmosphere. And, depending on who you're hanging out with, there's certain people that can really help you. It's creative. It's like a writing process. So, it's a good time.
Oh, it's fun. There's nothing better.
Yeah,
it's nothing better than stand-up, in my opinion.
I agree.
It's the highest of highs.
You have a very popular YouTube channel, and is your YouTube channel just your name as well? Is it just the same
so that's actually, I just started a brand new YouTube channel. That's not my business one. That one has way more subscribers, but it's just Ian Stanley, or it's at Ian Stanley Comedy. And that's where the special will be released for free after it's on the pay-per-view thing. And then I've got a bunch of different videos and stuff going out. That's my big focus now. And then I've got all my stuff on Instagram as well at Becoming Ian Stanley.
At Becoming Ian Stanley. I think it's really great. You're doing so many good things. It seems like you've got your head on straight. You're focusing now more on comedy, but you've got so many other things. Your ducks are in a row, I think is what I'm trying to say.
I appreciate it.
Well, it's hard, man, for comics because, sometimes, they don't ever have anything on the side to help them. You luckily, you built this industry, and now you can really put that attention onto comedy that you need to.
Yeah, it's actually huge. I've thought about just selling my company and being like, okay, I'm just going to go all in. But what I've realized is, and also the amount of money I make is, quite a bit compared to a normal person, or, what you'd even make in you'd have to be doing well as a comic. And so I'm like, until I've replaced it,
Sure.
it gives me the power to say no as well and not have to do a bunch of shit I don't like and don't want to do. And I can do my own shows and I can film my own, my own shows and all this stuff. So it's like, it's definitely a gift where I'm super grateful to have this business that, it takes me an hour or two a day. And then I can spend the rest of my time doing whatever. And at this point, it's, making videos and doing stand up and all that.
Yeah. Plus, you can stay home for most of that. And so that makes it very nice for you as well. Yeah. Well, you're very funny. You're very smart. And it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. You guys make sure you check out Ian's website, ianstanleycomedy.com, and then definitely check him out on YouTube as well. And don't forget about My Life in 3 Songs, you guys. That's my other show on Spotify. My Life in 3 Songs has me talking to comedians about the 3 songs in their life that have impacted them. Not their favorite songs, but songs that have made an impact. So you guys go over there to mylifein3songs.com. Check it out. And finally, remember, Story Smash, the storytelling game show, is this Saturday night in Silver Lake, California. This Saturday night. Go over to storysmashshow.com. The Dream Team is back with Danny Zucker, Melissa Peterman, and Blanca Patch. So again, you guys, head over to storysmashshow.com and get your tickets before they sell out. All right, you guys, thank you again so much for tuning into Storyworthy. This is why I do the show, because you guys are out there listening, and I get to meet cool people like Ian Stanley. Thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun. Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, you guys, on behalf of the very talented Ian Stanley, my name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week. Ta-da!
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.